All right. So absolutely, we are live. Welcome everybody. This is your boy Eric from Easy Computer Solutions. And man, let me make sure I'm live before we get it all into it here. Um, Man, I tell you what, this has been exciting to say the least here. Um, I hear myself in the background, so we must be live.
Wait. Okay. Yeah, I heard myself double. It's fine now.
All right, so and I'm up here. I'm making sure that we are 100% live, and going from there. Yes, woohoo!
Let me open the chat.
Yes, try to open up a chat myself and go from there. Let me open it up there, and I see people coming aboard. Yes, I look. It's been a challenge to say the least, but it's so many ways you can go live on YouTube, and it's one of the things that I wanted to do. Yes, we are back. All right. Finally
So,
seeing me. All right. All right. All right. So we look like we good to go.
yep, we are.
All right. So I got a special guest here. I am a huge fan of you. Believe me, everybody that's watching this stream right now know who you are. But for the people that don't know who you are, formally introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are.
Oh, I'm not that well in that kind of thing, but I'm a YouTuber for about 4 years now, and I pretty much review whatever I can get my hands on. Usually it's phones, that's what most people are interested in, and of course other things like, of course, laptops. I like headphones a lot, and all kind of gadgets I can get my hands on. But that's pretty much it. I started live streaming also again for a few weeks now because I did it a while ago, but at some point it was quite a lot of work. I don't know how you get it done 3 times a week. That's
Yes,
dedication.
it's a lot of fun. Absolutely a lot of fun. I stream 3 times a week, and I kind of upload videos at least, wow, 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm about live on YouTube 3 days a week, and I upload videos about 2 or 3 days a week. Not only that, but I got 3 YouTube channels. So
That's a lot.
yeah.
I
And you
don't
know
even
what?
like to manage too. That's too much.
You know what's so funny though? That you do it differently when you do your Q&A. I mean, you do it in 2 different languages. That's I know I live stream 3 days a week, but you live stream what, twice every time you do your Q&As.
Yep.
So you do it in German and you do it in English.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, but I started to doing that, but because I noticed that if I do everything in both languages, I should do the live streams as well. So it kind of is just the way I have to by now, I guess.
Right.
Especially, I did not expect the German ones to get almost the same views like the English ones. That's nice.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And one of the things that I like to do is I watch. Look, I am a diehard tech guy. I mean, I love everything about technology. I study it and I review it on this YouTube channel. So far, in the last 6 months, I've been on YouTube almost 3 years, but in the last 6 months, I think I've unboxed 15 phones. And I'm not sure, but it's like 2 weeks ago, I did like 3 unboxings or 4 unboxings already. So it's been exciting. I love technology, and I like doing this. And I tell you, I've seen a shift in technology over the past year. I don't know. I've been talking about this on my last stream, that in 2016 we saw a shift in technology as far as prices.
Yeah.
And we've seen with the Google Pixel what they did. Now we've seen in 2017 that prices is astronomical, and people is kind of scratching their head, say, okay, we getting all these high prices. What are we getting for these high prices? And I mean, when the Galaxy S8 came out at that high price point, G6 was even pretty expensive, following along with other devices. And we just got the Motorola Z2 Force that came out at a $800 price point. And so a lot of people, and plus with the rumor of the new Galaxy Note 8 and the iPhone supposed to be above the 1,000 price point. So a lot of people's confused, like, man, what is going on with these prices? And I talked about this a lot about streams as far as, price going up, guys. And a lot of people asking the question, what are we getting for these prices? So are you getting that same type of response from your viewers when they come down to prices versus technology and phones and tablets and stuff like that?
And the prices are a little bit weird, because to me it seems like ever since the Google Pixel got so expensive that every other flagship now got expensive way more. Because of course we get now better phones already for cheap, for like $300-400, which we didn't get maybe like 1 or 2 years ago. But I think the gap has widened, because I wouldn't pay $700-800. That's just too much, because you get so much. For example, the X7 was the best example. For about $400, you get pretty much what you get with a flagship. OnePlus is getting a little bit more expensive, but it's still there. But what I notice is this year, I've never seen flagships getting that cheap so quickly, because I don't know what the G6 costs by now, but here it's $380 sometimes, and it started with $750 when I reviewed it, so it lost 50% of its value. And also S8 is at $500 now by now. They dropped like crazy.
You know what? And I just talked about this. Actually, I talk about it a lot. I make fun of LG in so many perspective. And you're absolutely right. Even with the Galaxy S8 Plus and the Galaxy S8, this saw $200 to almost close to $300 price point dipped in the last week or so. And I said this. I said, wait a minute. The LG G6 was $750. Right now, you can get the LG G6 for $300, and you get free Google Home. I mean, they give you free refrigerators. I mean, they give you big screen TVs plus a rebate check. I mean, they got the lady with the milk and cookies at the door. I mean, God, that's insane that we've seen devices that's taken such a 40 to 50% dip in the last, 2 months?
Yep.
So, wow, it's been insane. But you know what? For the early adapters that we all get our pre-orders, we spend all this tons of money. If I wasn't a tech reviewer, I'd be like, you know what, let me wait a month.
Definitely, yeah. You save so much money if you just wait, like, let's say 3 months, and you get it for at least 30% off. And yes. Why would you? Because as a normal user, you don't have to have it first. As a reviewer, of course, if you don't get it in the first month or so, it's almost too late by now, which is a weird thing, because I've seen people telling me that I'm always late with my reviews if I'm already like 2 weeks behind the big reviewers. And for me, that's super fast. But for most normal geeks, that's already super late, because then they're already moving on to the next big thing. And we always have something. I think at the moment we are at quite some quiet time, because I had times when I had like 10 phones at a time, and now I have just one, and that's it, and it's fine. But it's crazy.
One of the things I want to do is give a shout out to all the people that joined the stream. And look, guys, I know I'm an hour late. I always start the streams about 8 p.m. Central Time. Obviously, I'm an hour late. I had some technical difficulties. As you guys know, if y'all watched the first stream, I was blacked out. Y'all watched the second stream, I was blacked out. I had some technical difficulties. So I'm here. I'm committed to this. And y'all guys know that I try to, on this channel, try to bring y'all guys all the hype, all the tech, interviews, everything. And it is my privilege and my honor to get this guy on. Listen, I mean, shouts out to Damir. Hey, man, I watch your YouTube channel, and actually, I'll be in your streams and stuff, and I watch your content. And you know what I like about your style is that you get right into it, and I like that. And we don't have, look, I started YouTube because I believe I got portrayed by tech reviewers. You know what I'm saying? I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I was buying product, and it was just the opposite of what tech reviewers were saying. So me as a tech person that I love technology, got college degrees in technology, computer science degrees, and me that just buying all these phones, I said, let me go on and start this tech stuff. So when I started doing YouTube, it's been fun. I mean, it's been challenging because something happened to me after I reached 10,000 subscribers. Things kind of changed. As far as the trolls and unsavory people and stuff like that, but it's all good. I have fun doing it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that we try to get the information out there to people. And some people don't like it, especially when, we be rough on the device. And I'm hard on phones. One thing about it, on this YouTube channel, I call it truth and justice. And by truth and justice, I mean I am super hard on the phone. I don't play that crap with phones. If it suck, I'm gonna say it suck because I don't get no lonely units. I don't get no promos. The only type of promos I get is cases and small stuff like that. And so I don't get those. So I'm totally independent. So I have to purchase everything I get. So it's very difficult for me spending, $20,000 a year on phones and tablets and computers, But shout out to everybody that's joining the stream. Welcome. Y'all see I got these special guests on, and I'm working very hard, do diligently, and I love to do this, and because I'm a great passion about tech. Now, one of the biggest questions people are asking is that, okay, so the Galaxy Note 8 coming out. Why is the iPhone and the Galaxy Note 8 going to be $1,000? Why? What are they bringing to the table that these devices going to be $1,000?
I don't know. I don't think the Note 8. I don't actually get the hype quite so much because it is pretty much just the S8 Plus with a pen. And I know you're a big fan of the pen, but someone like me who can't really use a pen much because my handwriting is ugly and all that, and I don't really use that kind of features with a phone. I don't see it. And with the iPhone, I don't know either, because yes, it has less bezels, but it's still the same old software, which I still didn't use because I never reviewed the iPhone. But it's weird for me to get that hype. Of course, it's Samsung and it's Apple, and therefore just we have enough hype. But I don't know why exactly. And the prices, I think the more I kind of see that is the higher the prices are, the more people actually want them because they feel special. Because I've seen there was one commenter on my Samsung S8, and whenever I said someone that the phone isn't good, he said you are just jealous because you can't afford it, which is kind of silly. But some people really think if they have an expensive phone, they are something better, and that's just crazy.
Right. I reviewed every phone from low end $40 blue phones all the way up to high-end phones, and people get upset if I compare a mid-range phone to a flagship, and I always try to break that definition. Okay, so what's a flagship? What is a flagship? If I got a device that said mid $500 that can do everything that $1,000 phone can do, I mean, so what is a flagship? We getting that line blurred of a flagship versus this, that, now. But you know what? You get all the Xiaomi phones and the Mi phones and we don't get that down in the United States, by the way. So
we don't get it here either. We have to import it as well. But we don't have. Xiaomi is only, I think, in China and India. That's pretty much only regions where they are properly available. Here, neither. You have to import them. And I noticed that US citizens really don't import all that much. I barely ever see any reviews from US. Jay Williams I saw has some, but not really much. That's really sad.
Well, I'm gonna tell you one of the reasons why is because down in the U.S. and I reviewed a few Lenovo phones like the Fab 2 Pros and stuff like that. And one of the biggest questions, and a lot of people hit the comments and said, "Can I get it at AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile?" And the answer is no. A lot of people in the U.S. is carrier based. Because when you talk about buying a phone for $800 out of pocket, the average consumer that flood the YouTube channels, their biggest comments are, "Can I get it at Verizon?" The answer is no. And so a lot of us tech reviewers in the United States don't want to do a lot of imports because of that. Same thing with the OnePlus. I mean, you could go ask anybody along any corner of the block, and maybe you go into the malls in the United States and ask, "Do you know what a OnePlus 5 is?" And they'll say, "Yes, it's OnePlus 5 and 6. So I mean, that's the dilemma for us in the United States. So we try to. Me personally, I try to do some imports, but I stick to a lot of carrier branded product because when the questions comes in, and even if I do get an import, I try to put the links and stuff, and I try to get stuff through Amazon. Because people trust Amazon, people trust the carriers, people trust those different entities. So when I do those type of videos, when those people do ask those questions of where can I buy the product, where can I get this, and how much does it cost, I say, listen, on my website, Easy Computer Solutions, shouts out to the ad clicks, and I got links to all that, to Amazon and stuff like that. So I think that's one of the reasons why us in the United States don't get imports.
No, I would say I agree, because what I've seen here, if people have a more expensive phone like an S8 or an iPhone, it's usually through contracts. And if you see people getting it outright, then it's mostly like a mid-range phone, like at 300. But the imports that I see, people only are willing to get an import phone because you don't have the same warranty. You don't always have the bands. If it's really cheap, like maybe a maximum of 200, that's their maximum. Usually 150 is what people are willing to spend, because if it breaks, you didn't really lose much money. But if that would be the case for a 5, 6, and that's why I don't think the Chinese flagship imported phones really sell all that well, because they are great, but if it breaks, you are pretty much out of luck, which is completely different. And that's why a contract makes sense, and that's why it makes sense to buy something a little bit more expensive on the local market. I think warranty is a big issue still, why imports are still so seen as an issue.
You know, one of the things that we see rumors in the United States is Huawei is coming to AT&T, which that is a big thing, because Huawei devices have snuck into a Best Buy in the United States. So for Huawei to hit the market down in the United States is a huge deal, because look, we might be getting possibly the Mate 10 that might hit the AT&T carrier stores, which we don't like carrier lock branded phones either, but I think that's a step in the right direction. I mean, the Central phone can't get here, so I mean, you know, that's a whole totally different subject. But I think for anybody to succeed, because we had the dilemma of the Lepros to try to come in the United States, and it just didn't work. And so now, but Huawei such success, in my opinion, it's a success, because if you could get it to a carrier, that means at least your device is selling in the United States, and so it's working out for at least Huawei.
Yeah, but I also have to say the carriers in your country are way too powerful, because we don't have carrier brandings for ages anymore. I think the last phone that actually has some carrier software like T-Mobile or whatever we have here is like ages ago on the big phones. Some cheaper phones have it because the way they are supported by the carrier. But a Samsung phone, if you get it from no matter which carrier, it is pretty much an unlocked phone, and you can use it. And we don't have this kind of lock-ins anymore. The only phones that are locked in on the carrier are like 20, 30 bucks phones. But everything above 100 is unlocked, and you can use it. You don't have to do anything. And that's why when I see on US carriers, you have to use it like a year until you can switch to the next SIM. That's brutal, I guess. I don't know how they got that powerful in your country. It's weird.
You know why? And you know what's so funny? I'm a big advocate of not paying for these crappy plans that these, you know, AT&T, it is insane. AT&T could put you on a 30-month program. That's insane to pay for a phone for 30 months. But we have that here in the United States. We got 24-month plans. Now we got 30-month plans. You're talking about what, 2 years, 2.5 years paying on a phone when you go through almost 3 generations? That's insane.
Yep.
I mean, but in the United States, that's what's going on. And you're right. We do have the carriers have the power to do a lot of stuff. But in the United States, also, a lot of people they don't like to come up with a lot of upfront money. And the carriers know this. I mean, you can actually buy almost any device that's out, that's available for, you go to a carrier with $100 and you can get an $800 phone.
Yep.
You know, and that's how it is in the United States. Shouts out to everybody that joined the stream. Shouts out to Don. Shouts out to Albert in the building. Shouts out to Gary in the building. I see y'all guys in the building. Welcome to the live stream. Hey, listen, I know I'm late, but I'm glad y'all guys are here. What you think about this craziness of this essential phone? We got to talk about this essential phone.
I don't really know what they're thinking with that phone, because I've heard in the UK it will be pretty much available as the first one, but in Germany I don't think we will see it anytime soon, because I still don't know what to think of this phone, because I've seen that a lot of it doesn't get backed up anymore so much, and a lot of people are already getting out of it. So the problem is with the phone, I think for a first phone, it's kind of too expensive. Okay, I know the strategy, because I've somewhere read once, if you go too low on your first phone, you just can't get higher in price anymore. If you price the first one higher, you can always go lower, or always maybe offer a cheaper phone. therefore, I guess that's the reason why they went so high up top from the first place. Because if they would have released something like OnePlus did, a maybe even $400 phone, the next step everyone would have said, how can they go now for 600-700? Because for the specs, the price is in line with what everyone wants. But also it's hard because it's their first product and it's quite steep. So
yeah, $750. You know what? That's insane, especially when the Galaxy S8 in the United States right now, the Galaxy S8 Plus, you can get that device for $670. That means that if you could get a Galaxy S8 Plus for $670, there's no way that anybody in the United States go buy a Central phone for $750. It ain't happening.
Yeah, especially since you don't know what kind of support you will get. Because just look at the next bit. Everyone put so much hopes into that phone, and it's dead after just one phone. And a lot of people are already saying that it will be the same with the Essential phone. I think Essential has a little bit of a bigger name just with Andy Rubin behind it. But next bit, everyone said this could be the next thing, and it didn't. And I always was a little bit unsure about it. I doubted that they will have some success because the phone on its own wasn't that strong. The Essential phone definitely looks something more high-end. So it could be neck to neck with a Pixel, but definitely they don't have the name.
Right, you know, one of the things that when we saw the debacle with the interview, all right, so it was downhill from there, actually. Going off the interview and Andy Rubin promising the device would be out 30 days or 90 days or 30 days. It didn't come out. A lot of people was getting emails saying that they got some emails saying that the device, they're working hard and trying to get it out. Now, we just saw it on Best Buy. It's on Best Buy. They say it's coming soon. So it's not available. Also, it's supposed to be locked on Sprint, you know. So you got all that going on. And Sprint I don't think Sprint even broadcasted that the device is coming soon. So all in all, this is a very, very, very funky release. And when the device does come out, then what? Okay, us tech reviewers, we go out and buy them, we go get them, we go review them. But if the average consumer walk into a Sprint store and you see a Galaxy S8 for $670 and you see a Central phone for $750, what would you buy? First of all, they're going to ask the question, what is an Essential phone? What is this?
Yep.
And most of your salespeople, carriers, they will sell you. In the United States, and this happens, I did this test so many times. If you walk into a carrier, the salespeople go try to sell you two phones, a Galaxy phone and an iPhone. Now, they may have plenty of phones on display, and they may not even have any knowledge about this phone or that phone, but they can tell you a whole lot about an iPhone, and they can tell you a whole lot about the Galaxy S8. And so that'd be their two primary phones and if it's commission-based, also, you know, they could get higher commission sales and stuff like that. So, you know, when it come down to a Essential phone, that's going to be the biggest problem. Would the salespeople push it? Would they put it on end caps? Would you have a lot of marketing? I mean, you know, how many review units you're going to send out to YouTubers, and how much, you know, capital you're going to spend to try to get the positive stuff out there so people can see this device in action? I don't know.
I agree, but I would say one thing that they made already right, that you can, once I guess it's released, you can actually check it at Best Buy, because that's the big issue why still something like OnePlus sells big because of its community. But if you have a phone that actually might be very good, but you can never see it anywhere, because I've seen someone asking me for a phone and he said he just can't buy it because he never can touch it in a store or anything like that. And it might be the best phone, but if you've never heard of the brand and never used one of the phones and never seen it in person, it's something different. So that's why it's okay. That's why it's good that you can at least see the Essential phone. But I don't really know, because the issue is also they have a little bit of an unfortunate timing for the release, because now all the pretty much same spec flagships like the U11, like the Samsung S8 are already way cheaper with the same specs. So why should you buy it now? Because the moment it gets cheaper, you can already get the Pixel. So they are kind of in between, but it was totally unfortunate. They should have either released it maybe like 3 months later with around the Pixel and the iPhone to be maybe neck to neck and maybe get the people that don't like the Pixel so much, or way earlier, but their timing is quite bad.
And you know what? I agree with you, because now, I mean, even LG going to have a problem. I mean, you're going to be in iPhone, and Galaxy Note sees it, and he's going to V30.
Yeah.
And we know that the V30 is going to be a G6. Now, I've said on this YouTube channel, I like the G6, but I mean, it's being claimed a failure because of LG coming out with their quarterly results, saying how much money they lost on the LG G6. So, with that said and done, what LG is going to do about the V30? I mean, if you're losing millions on a G6, I mean, what's going to happen with the V30 when you got the Galaxy? When Samsung will be spending millions of bucks on ad revenues and ad campaigns, and you're going to have billboards, and you're going to see everything underneath the sun when it comes down to Galaxy Note 8 commercials. It's the same thing with Apple. Apple's going to flood all the social media, all the TV spots with iPhone. So where does the V30 gets his shine? I mean, the same thing that happened to the V20. I just don't know.
Yeah, but what I see, the way I see it, LG, I think has a bigger plans this time for the V30, and I think like the V10 and V20 were like test runs, because in Europe the V10 was available like half a year later once it was released in the US, and by then no one cared about it. Same actually for the V20 that never really appeared here, so you kind of had to go through different sources. But from what I got, the V30 should be announced on IFA. So this means if it is gonna be really or announced in Germany, it should be even available in Europe. And this means that they have this time the idea of getting it internationally out, because just as the US, of course, it is the biggest market as one, but after all, Europe is just about as big, and if they can sell it there, it spreads way wider throughout the whole world. It has to be done, because you can't just rely on one. The same issue with, for example, Sony, just the other way around. They don't sell it in the US, and that's why they don't have the big name, because if you want to have your big name out, you have to be big in the US after all with the name. Because if you are big in China is very cut off from the rest of the world. So whatever is big there, you don't really notice in Europe or in the US. Europe is the same. So you kind of have to be big in the US, but still be available in Europe.
So let me ask you a question. Is the US the bigger market? Because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it looks like the U.S. kind of controls a lot of things that happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's maybe the bigger market, but I think it's the more important market. Because if you just look at how many people live in Europe as a whole, and in the U.S., it's bigger in the Europe as a whole. But you also have a lot of, let's say, poorer countries, and they don't really matter at all. So it's the big countries like the UK, Germany, and maybe Italy, Spain, and some of them. And all of these are small countries on its own, and Europe doesn't still gonna get seen as one big market. But the US isn't. They just have definitely the more powerful market. So what is big there sets the tone, I think.
Right. So we're going to get into some of the questions. I see a lot of people posting comments. I want to say what's up to everybody. If you're new to the live stream, please go ahead on and subscribe to my channel. Also, y'all know this guy right here. A lot of y'all come from his channel. Let me get into y'all guys' comments. And let's see. Shouts out to everybody that's in the channel. Anthony Cooper, my best phone I have ever owned was the Huawei P9 Max, which again, the P8 Max was not available in the US. The P9 was not available in the US. The only Huawei phones is available in the US is the Honor 8 and the Mate 9. That's it.
What's with the P10? Isn't it available in the US? I think it is, but because I think I've read it, but that got no attention at all, if I'm right.
If I'm not mistaken, it may be available on Amazon, but it's not in no Best Buys. It's not available in it. Usually, like a Best Buy will pick it up, and it just so happened that Best Buy has a Huawei end cap in the US. So if you walk into the mobile division of a Best Buy, you will see the Huawei Mate 9, you will see the Honor 8 in different colors and stuff like that. But last time I went to Best Buy, which I go to Best Buy almost every day, and no P10, no P10 at all.
Yeah, but that's something I don't quite understand. The Honor 8 from Honor itself, they said, was their most popular, their most important phone ever. Why didn't they release the Honor 9? I don't quite get that. Same as also for the Honor 8 Pro. I think the Honor 8 Pro, especially with 5.7 inches, the Quad HD display, it would have sold. And I've seen so many people on my review telling me that they would like to buy it, but it's just not available in the US. And I think they made a big mistake with the Honor 8 Pro not getting out.
You know, one of the things that I think was happening in the U.S. Is when you walk into a T-Mobile. I mean, basically they got iPhones and Galaxy phones, and then they have their more mid-ranges and cheapies kind of ducked off in the back. The salespeople just want to sell you an iPhone or a Galaxy phone, which is a shame. I think that we need more choices. Now, if you go to some of the other low-end markets like Boost Mobile here in the U.S., also Metro PCS in the U.S., they carry all the low and mid tiers of the LG K20s, and you'll see some of those devices, which it's insane to me, because you're looking at good devices like Huawei Mate, not the Mate 9, that's already available, but the Huawei Honor 9. Good device, updated specs, just a beautiful phone. But if you walk into a Best Buy, once again, you won't see it. And hopefully AT&T will try to change some of this stuff when they do carry some of the Huawei product. But I think we do need some more choices. I think we really do. A shout out to Tanner that just hit the building. How you doing? Great interaction here. Damir makes sense about the Honor phone. And you know what? That's what I'm talking about. Like, you really make sense about the Honor phone. And I don't know. I think in the U.S., the carriers don't want to push other product. I think in the U.S., since the Galaxy phones are so popular, right now you could get a Galaxy S7 Edge cheap, the Galaxy S8 cheap, the iPhone. I mean, they'll have iPhone 7, 7S, 7 Pluses or whatever, and they'll have all kinds of, you know, good discounts and stuff. Those are the major items that they will sell. And so when it comes down to, it's about the education. This is why I make a lot of videos about mid tiers and stuff like that, because I think the average consumer is just not educated on, you know, getting better bang for your buck. People just want to sell them. And look, the thing about it is most people that go to Metro PCS or Boost Mobile, I mean, they just get anything. It doesn't matter. You know, it just, hey, you go give it to me for $30, no problem, give it to me. But the major carriers, man, they have a lot of influence on the whole market.
But I would actually like to know, what kind of phones do you see in your surroundings? Because if I look at mine, it's either an iPhone, it's either Samsung. And if people have something different, it's definitely usually something quite cheap. So there is a big gap. No one really, because when I have a review unit and someone asks me what kind of phone I have and I say the price and it's 300 and above, they already say, oh, that's too much. Because if they look at around 200, or if they buy it outright, or if they go with a contract, they go for something really expensive. But what kind of phones do you see? Do you see phones like the LG K20 or the Stylo? Do you see those cheaper phones people are actually using? Because from what I see, it seems like in the US, everyone is using a flagship because he buys it for a contract. And then it doesn't matter in terms of price.
Well, absolutely, I agree with you. And see, down here is in I can speak for what happens in the hood, right? A lot of people in the hood, you will see the K20s and you see the Metro PC, because down in the US, most of your hood carriers are the Metro PC. You see them in the hood, like it's like I go downtown New Orleans. That's where I'm at, Louisiana, and if I go in the hood in New Orleans, I can see a Boost Mobile store or Metro PCS. I won't see an AT&T in the hood, but I do see Metro PCSs. I see a lot of Boost Mobiles. I mean, they're on the corners. I mean, they are in the little strip malls and stuff like that. Or you see them in New Orleans, I kid you not, you'll have a grocery store and they'll have a kiosk of a Boost Mobile or Metro PCS. This in the kiosk in the grocery store. So it's rarely available in the hood. So you do see those type of low end budget phones, the real cheapies are in the hood. But you're right. If you go in the malls, if you go to day-to-day activity, all you're going to see is iPhones and Galaxy phones, all over the place. So yeah.
Yeah, but here's the question: what would you use for a phone at your daily driver if you wouldn't be a techie? Because I personally wouldn't, I think, go for something super expensive, because I think something like the best chip you can get if you are a non-techie but still want a great experience would be something like with a Snapdragon 625, because you get pretty much the experience of a flagship but pay so much less, but you still don't sacrifice, because sure, you could get for something like 200 maybe, But I think if you just pay those 100 more to get it around 300, maybe 350, you can get already so close. And if I wouldn't be a reviewer, I definitely would not spend anything more than maybe 400 max.
I agree with you. And if I wasn't a reviewer, I would probably have a Galaxy Note 4 or a Galaxy Note 5. And I probably won't have any other phone because I love my Galaxy, because I use the pen. I use it for business a lot. So I would probably use the Galaxy Note. If not that, I would probably, Galaxy S7 Edge or something like that. That would probably be my device. I like iPhones, but in my type of business, I need to have the flexibility. So
yeah, but that's already the difference. You want it for business. If you wouldn't be someone who needs it for business, just for your private stuff, I think you don't even need something like a Note. For business, I totally get that that's for your personal needs. But I think most people would be fine with something like a Moto G5 Plus or something around that price point.
Yeah, you know what? Believe it or not, if I wasn't in the business and I didn't need my Note 5, if I didn't need a Note device, I would, kid you not, I will have an Honor 8. I absolutely love that device. I mean, I pull out that Honor 8 and everybody that look at that device, they absolutely love it. It's such a gorgeous phone. And I am a sucker for glass, believe it or not. And every time I pull out my Honor 8, it is one of those devices that turn heads. And everybody absolutely love that device. And it's a very good device, good cameras, a good build quality, good speed, but yeah, I would agree. And plus, the device in the US just did a price decrease of like $250 in US and down here. So absolutely, I would go there. But most of you millennials, when I take my daughter to school, when I went to my daughter graduations and stuff like that, everybody, all the millennials got iPhones. Everybody got iPhones. I mean, it's just like 100% in high schools. It's all iPhones. You got to be having fun. You got to have an iPhone if you're a millennial.
Here's one thing. I just saw a comment and it says, I hate Samsung phones. The lag drives me crazy. Let me know your opinion on that. But the way I see it, actually, I kind of get what people are saying because of the lag. But even though I have to say, I have a Samsung Galaxy S7 still running. Okay, it runs a custom ROM. But also people say why, and I don't know why I see this only on Samsung phones. People always ask, why do Samsung phone run so much slower after like 2 or 3 months? But I made a video 3 months later. I made a video 6 months later. And I could make it now, like, I think like 15 months later since it was released, mine runs still the same. I think people just crap it up over time. They never maybe clear their cache. So I don't know what they do, because the easiest way to get it to work like it out of the box is just to factory reset it, like maybe half a year, if it's the case that it slows down. But mine don't slow down because the apps that I have once installed, I use them and I don't really clutter up my system. And that's why I see the lag. Especially on the S8, I saw some jitteriness in the scrolling. But if you just look at the scrolling in some apps, it's still superior to most other phones. Like just for example, my S7, it still runs actually smoother in some apps than some flagships do now because of the AMOLED display and some other optimizations. But if they would just get away with that jitter, I think they would actually be almost at least half a level in front of the competition, because especially the Exynos versions here, they run, if they are properly optimized, so well. And that's why I don't quite get why so many people hate on the lag, because it is not perfect, but
I can tell you my opinion about this. I think what happens is, if you go back to maybe 2013 or 2012, we had the Galaxy S4, Galaxy S3, when Samsung was throwing everything in the kitchen sink in their phones. And they was very underpowered back in the day. They needed Snapdragon 820s and 821s back in 2012 because Samsung put everything in the device. And then TouchWiz was a very heavy overlay. Now, if you fast forward to 2016, TouchWiz, the word TouchWiz went away. People always still bringing up TouchWiz. Nature UX was the next operating system. That was the name. Now, what Samsung did was, when the Galaxy Note 7, before it went in Flameville, the second version of the Galaxy Note 7 was very good optimized. I think what happened is, you got two things that happen when people say the word lag in Samsung. Because of the history of Samsung, I think that's one thing. The second thing is, when people talk about lag, is that if you actually open up the recent apps, they may have apps for a whole month that's still open. And so a lot of them don't close apps. And I know with Android 7.0, Android fixed some of the memory management, RAM management issues, and it started, dormant apps after you open up so many of them. And a lot of people believe that if Samsung drove 8 gigs of RAM in the device or 6 gigs of RAM, it would fix that. I think what it is when you run an Android, if you're on an Android device, and it's not, you don't have to be a techie, but you do have to, sometimes you do have to turn your phone off and on. Sometimes you got to clear out the cache. Sometimes you got to start closing apps. Sometimes you have to, instead of having 1,000 apps installed on your device, just only have the apps that you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of don't agree on the more gigs, because I've seen, I think yesterday also a live stream, and people said if the Note 8 will have 6 gigs of RAM, it could maybe fix the lag, but that's not the purpose of lag. I mean, of the RAM, because the issue with the lag on Samsung device is something that they make different in terms of scrolling and so on. And I don't know exactly what it is, but throwing more RAM into it won't change it, because I also don't know why so many people say the more RAM a phone has, the more powerful it is. RAM doesn't, or more RAM doesn't make a phone faster. It's faster RAM or optimization, but just the amount, it doesn't change, because I switched from, on my PC, from 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM. I don't see a difference at all, because as long as you don't get close to what you have, and Android still does this, if you get to a certain amount of RAM that isn't used, it just closes apps automatically in the background. So with 8 gigs or with 6 gigs, you can just run more apps at the same time. But the apps that are running, that are in the RAM, they will run the same if it's more or less open. So it doesn't matter. And that's why I don't think that RAM will be the change. You have to do something different. But I don't agree with the lag, because I don't actually see lag on Samsung device anymore. What I see is little bit of some odd scrolling. That's for me the issue. That's what I've seen on the OnePlus 5. But I don't think many people actually know what they are talking about when they say lag. And one thing that I think Samsung did definitely wrong was changing their name of the UI so many times, because it was TouchWiz for so many years. Then it was for maybe one generation Nature, something like that. Then it was Grace, and now it's Samsung Experience. And people always say, change the name, it will still stay TouchWiz. And I think they won't get away with this anyway. But they should have sticked with the name and just optimized it properly.
Hey, I agree with you. And look, believe it or not, and man, you bring up so many good points when it comes down to RAM management. I remember seeing the keynote address when they released Android 6.0. The main focus was RAM management, so they can use the older legacy devices that can run updated operating systems like Android 6.0 and 7.0. That's why you see devices with 2 gigs of RAM that's running Android 7. Because in Android 6, their whole purpose was to use those into dormant apps and to use to have RAM management to fix some of these RAM issues. And they fixed this stuff in Android 6. Now, when you're talking about RAM, you're absolutely right. I think people don't understand about speed versus RAM. That's two different things there. People believe, and because of OnePlus and through 8 gigs of RAM in a device, it's going to be the fastest device on the planet. That's not the case. It's not about the RAM. I talk about this in my streams a lot, and people be calling me out like, man, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying to myself, all you have to do is look at your RAM allocation. Look at your RAM. If you can go into your source code, look how much RAM allocations that the device can use. Also, look at your RAM itself. Look at your memory. Look at how much memory your device is using. And I can promise you that it's not coming close to 8 gigs.
No.
Not close to 6 gigs neither.
Yeah, but that's the same thing I always hear when people ask me if they should maybe go for the 4 or 6 gig version or for the 3 or 4 gig version, if they will have some speed improvement. What I always tell them is what you will get is only a better multitasking experience. So you can have some more apps maybe in the RAM, but it won't change performance, because if you just maybe run 3 or 4 apps, 3 gigs, 4 gigs is easily more than enough. And I would say still 4 is, I would say, the sweet spot, because it is a little bit better than 3, and everything above 4 is just not needed in the moment. 3, but still, if you are just a normal user, 3 is more than enough.
I agree with you. Listen, I actually did a lot of videos on the Stylo 3 Plus, right? And the device got 2 gigs of RAM in it, and it runs very good. I mean, runs, and it got pin software, just heavy overlay on top of Android. And I've been making plenty of videos about this device, and it runs great. Every game you run into it, every game you play, I mean, runs great with no problem. Now, and just, I think this is the thing of when you're looking at like 6 gigs of RAM, the marketing. We put 8 gigs of RAM in the device to give you all this experience. We go give you the most powerful device on the planet. Well, that's not the case. 835 is 835.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. It is what it is. 835 is the 835. If 4 gigs of RAM is fine.
Yeah.
If you look at your RAM management, it is what it is. But you know what?
Yeah, but here's another thing. Someone asked me if I could review different kind of chipsets, like for example the Snapdragons and also the MediaTeks, compare them with other ones. But I told him I can't review like on a PC just the chipset, because it comes down to so much more. Like for example, where this chipset is running, because I told him, just for example, take the Huawei lineup. You have the Kirin 960 in the Mate 9, you have it in the P10, you have it in the Honor 9 and Honor 8 Pro. And on all those 4 devices, even though they have pretty much the same internal specs, every phone runs different, because the Mate is still the best one and the Honor 9 being the weakest one, which just shouldn't be the case. So how should I compare it? For example, if I would take the Honor 9 and judge the Kirin 960 on that base, I would say it's not a really great chip, it's a good chipset. But if I would take it on the Mate 9, I would say it's an absolutely destroyer of all other chips. And that's why, of course, some benchmarks help to kind of deviate that. But what's that importance? Because I'm pretty sure if I would take the Mate 9, run a benchmark and do it on the Honor, I mean the Mate 9 and the Honor 9, it would be pretty much the same in terms of numbers. But what you actually experience in normal use is something completely different. And that's why I don't give anything about benchmarks and so on. And you just can't compare chipsets. Because I've run, for example, on a Xiaomi device, it was the MediaTek X25. And I've used the X27 on other phones, and it ran so much weaker just because something else is just not right in those phones.
Yeah, poor optimization in the device. Not enough, TLC in the devices that you're going to run into these issues. And you know what? I think once we get into 2018, and I got this whole feeling about how I'm changing my demeanor. I mean, I look at it like this. I look at different classes of phones. When I review a phone, I look at the price. If I review a Stylo 3 that costs $200, I'm not going to look at it as $1,000 phone. So yeah, when you see it with a 1080p screen, 2 gigs of RAM, a 430 processor, you give it a little slack because it's $200. Now, for a 550 and above device, where you're seeing phones with 1080p screens and stuff like that, for almost a $600 price point, then you start questioning it. Because I believe that once you get it to close to the $600 price point, you are in flagship territory. And flagships, to me, I believe, should be the best of the best.
Yeah, but here's my question. You say that you judge a $200 phone different than a $500, which is completely right. But what, for our example, do is, if in my detailed part, I review every phone as if there would be no price difference, if it's just a phone. And of course, then a mid-ranger maybe gets a good, where the flagship gets a great rating, which is totally fine. And later on in the conclusion, then I take the price into consideration. Then I, of course, say you have to see these things weaker, but for the price, this is very good, and so on. But what I've seen, for example, a few sites doing, they for every category give a specific rating, because, for example, you can give a mid-ranger a 90%, but then they also give a flagship 90%. And if you don't notice, for example, I've seen that, and I've seen this mid-range phone, and I've seen it getting 90%, and I thought, how can you give a phone like this 90%? Yeah, he said, for that price range, it's 90. But I think that's kind of misleading, because not everyone knows if that phone is a mid-range or if it's a flagship. So I think you should generalize that and then give it the rating, and then later on say, for the price, it's still very good. There, it could be a 90%. But if you just say 90% for a mid-range and 90% for a flagship, most people would just see 90% and 90% and would assume it's the pretty much same experience. And of course, they go for the cheaper one, and then they are disappointed if they get the weaker device. And I don't think that's right. So how would you rate that if you do that?
Well, what I usually do is, if I rate a phone, well, actually, believe it or not, I don't give most phones ratings. I always tell people, I tell people to be the judge for themselves. Also, I always like to kind of emphasize it in the beginning of most of my videos to talk about, hey, this is a $200 phone. Then throughout the review, I might say it like 3 or 4 times. Wow, this is great for a $200 phone, but it's not the best. I might say something that it's a 1080p screen for $200, and usually going back to 2016, when you see $200 phones, you always get 720p screens for $200 phones back a year ago, and now in this year you start to see 1080p screens on $200 phones, that's a huge improvement over last year.
But I think they made a little bit of a mistake here, especially with the 430 on the Snapdragon, because last year the 430 was running in most 720p phones, like you said, and now this year we're getting 1080p. But I think especially the 430 is running on its limits to getting 1080p running. I don't know, maybe the 435 could be better, but I don't think they should have released so many 1080p 430 phones. They should have stick with 720 or get something better out there, because I think the performance is a little bit inconsistent. I noticed that on the Moto G5 for a little bit, also on the Lenovo K6. They can run well, but so many times you see those kind of slowdowns where you notice that the chip runs on its limits.
You know what? I agree with you on that one. And why these OEMs are doing this? I mean, I understand they're sitting at the round table and say, okay, we have to do some upgrades here. We're going to put 1080p screen, but we're going to keep the same chipset. And that is confusing. I mean, 625s compared to the 626s of 2017. So it is confusing to see that we seeing devices with 430s in them instead of the 435s. And it's confusing to see 625s versus the 626. And so right now, we're hearing that the Google Pixel will probably have the 836 processor. We don't know until we see it, but I do agree. 430 processors is right now at the limit. Now, I ran Lumia phones. Oh my God, I did a lot of Windows phones. I went bought them all and I was reviewing them. And Windows, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I see 210s in a lot of their devices. I mean, they was running Snapdragon 210s and stuff, and it was a horrible experience on some of them. You know.
But you know what's the kind of weirdest rumor at the moment, since we're talking about 720p and so on? Sony is supposed to bring out this XE1 compact 720p display, but with a Snapdragon 835. And my first reaction was, that's overkill for the CPU, because you don't need an SoC to run that resolution. But why I would go for an 835 over something like a Snapdragon 821, which could definitely easily push that, is the efficiency. Because if you just take, for example, the OnePlus 3T, it has the bigger battery than the 5. And the 5, just because Snapdragon 835 is so much more efficient, delivered me, for example, 1.5 hours of more screen on time. So in some ways, it seems unbalanced. And I would have definitely also liked to have seen a 1080p display. For 4.6 inches, I don't think it's too high res, especially since Sony was the one releasing 4K displays. So they should have, I think, went for 1080p. 720p, if they make it right, if it looks as good as on the, for example, X Compact, it will be a great phone, but most people will just see 720p and they will think that's just outdated, because only the iPhone got to do that, because I don't know what they do about their screens, but they have some clarity that it makes look like it has some higher resolution. And I don't think you can sell a premium compact phone, which is still something a lot of people want, with a 720p display anymore.
Yeah, I think 720p is done. Especially, I mean, you know what? I think these OEMs are trying to sneak some of this stuff in. And again, all my YouTube channels about truth and justice. And I tell you, I really rig them real hard on that because obviously when the device come out, it will not be cheap. So if you're not going to give me a good $250 price point for a 720p, even though I got the 835, don't matter. You're going to give me a high processor with a low-res screen. I mean, obviously, you can't do no Daydream compatibility. You can't do nothing, no VR. I mean, it's going to be a very, very, very fast phone. Okay, so why at least give me 1080p?
You also have to see it like this. I just can't really justify spending, like, I think at least $500-600 for a flagship, for a compact flagship, which is something that people want. But if you can get already 1080p phones at around $150, because you feel yourself fooled. Why would you can get a 1080p already so cheap, and you buy something so expensive that might be amazing, and even though the screen might be great, you still are stuck at 720p. I think if you pay $300 1080p is a must.
Listen, and I agree with you. And my stance is this. I'm with you. 300, 1080p screen, 500, 550 to $600, 2K displays. And I'm going to tell you, in 2018, if you come out with a phone in 2018 that's a $600 price point, that's 1080p screen, I will dog you out. I'm gonna tell you right now, because there's no way, especially when we had Exxon 7s with 2K displays on it for $400. There's no way that you're gonna come out with a phone for $600 and $700 with a 1080p screen on. It ain't happening. So I'm just an advocate. Especially I've been reviewing the Sony X8 Premium with the 4K display. And I'm gonna tell you, it is amazing watching YouTube videos on that thing. Oh my God, it's high, but that 4K display is sweet.
Yeah, it is. Woo! But I also have to say, I see so many people saying now it has even HDR with Netflix and so on. But I don't know how many people, maybe they do, but how many do actually watch 4K content on a phone? Because I usually only watch YouTube videos. And if then I do it somewhere where I'm around on mobile data and I can't stream at 4K or 1080p because my mobile data just isn't unlimited or something like that. So I usually keep it at 240p. So what's the benefit of that screen? And if I'm at home where I can use that 4K 1080p, I use it on a tablet, a laptop, or on desktop. So I guess more people do it as I think, because I see it so many times. But I think 4K isn't really necessary for movies. I think it's okay if you have it, but yeah, it's.
And you know what? And I say the same thing until I started reviewing 4K device. And I started doing my YouTube channel in 4K now. So I'm up to 2160 or whatever. So I'm doing 4K now on my YouTube videos. And I can tell you that watching the 4K TV and watching 4K content and watching some stuff on my 2K display or on the 4K display, and I don't know, it looks differently. And in the US, especially for me, I don't worry about data. I do understand that data is a big issue to some people. That, I mean, when you stream a 4K product or if you watch a 4K video, it takes a lot of data. Now, I did a 9-minute video on my YouTube channel, and it was 5 gigs rendering. And that is huge. It was a huge file to upload to YouTube. I mean, 5.5 gigs to upload to YouTube is blistering. I'm glad I got 100 megs. But it was my first time doing the 4K video, and it came out so good. I actually rewatched it, and I've been doing my videos at 1080p at 60 frames per second. And I wanted to take the next step to 4K. I got all these DSLRs and all that stuff. I said, let me go on and use it. And I don't know. It just watching some 4K content, I think this is a future, especially if we're going to charge me $1,100 for a phone. See, that's what I'm saying. I don't want a 2K display that I'm going to pay $1,100 for a phone. So if we're going to hit the $1,100 to $1,200 price point in 2018 for devices, that I expect a 4K display at that point, because Samsung been doing 2K displays. We've been seeing 2K displays, wow, for at least 5-6 years, right? So I think the next era, because we're going into the 5G network, we're getting faster data speeds. We got devices that's coming in that's putting all this technology in. We getting, Apple is doing VR and AR. All right. So now I think we at this point that if we're going to pay $1,100 and $1,200 for a phone in 2018 and up into the future, that I think we ought to get 4K displays, or at least have the option, like Samsung does, give you the option to switch to the 2K to 1080p to 720. I think that's need to be an option.
It should be an option, but I also have to say I don't want to spend $1,100-$1,200 for a phone. I don't want.
Woo. That's coming, man. Look, you know, so funny. I think after the Google Pixel, I paid $970 for a Google Pixel, and that was astronomical. I could not believe that a stock Android device would ever be that expensive. But now, since Google did it, everybody doing it.
Yeah, but the problem for me is when I've seen the Action 7, and I've seen also really some really good, like back then the OnePlus 3T, so many good, almost flagship, and in some ways actually better than flagship phones for 400. I thought we would now get to a point where the flagships have to get cheaper. But exactly the opposite happened, especially since I think that the Pixel caused all that. Because once the different OEMs seen that Pixel pulled something so expensive, and they want to be the best, for a lot of people means the best means that it also has to be the most expensive one. And it doesn't always matter, because some people just see 500 and it could be just as good at the $800 phone, but they think it has to be better because it's more expensive. And that's why I think the trend is going for more expensive phones, because some people just say, I want the very best one, I need that phone. And the only issue why I think you are actually paying extra for the flagship is, in most cases, is just the camera, because everything else is on such a good level. But the biggest difference to most flagships and mid-ranges is pretty much just the camera.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you know what? Think about this. What happened with Apple did. Didn't Apple kind of separated itself from the average consumer to the elites? The first generation Apple Watch, remember that? The first generation Apple Watch came out with a cheapie, $300, $400 watch. Then you got the $18,000 watch, right? And Apple say, hey, this is for a first generation watch. We got a watch for the regular folk. Then we have the elites. And the 18,000, and it was so funny that I seen some celebrities that was kind of showing it on Instagram and all kinds of stuff, that they got their Apple Watch, $18,000 for a first generation Apple Watch. It was insane. So Apple, think about this, even when they got their Macs and the Mac Pros and all this stuff like that. I mean, they got the MacBook Air, you know. I mean, you want the cheapie, okay, we're going to give you a $900 laptop. But if you want a Mac Pro, you got to pay $1,500 for it. But now, since you want the upper tier iMacs, you're going to pay $3,000 for it. So, and I think what it is, don't get me wrong, it gives you options, but I think a lot of people is going into this Apple method or this Google method, what they came out with the Pixel, and I don't want the prices to go up. But if the Galaxy Note 8 come out at $1,000 price point, that's the rumor that we've been hearing, and the iPhone X or iPhone whatever is coming out at this $1,100 price point, it's gonna just change the whole industry.
Yeah, maybe could be.
Yeah,
but people are still, I see they're still discussing the 2K thing and so on. Because what Albert wrote, I don't quite get it. He says Quad HD over 2K over 1080p. The difference in width between 2K and 1080p is only 80 pixels. Think about before you bash 1080p. There's not much difference. I don't think that's right, because that seems wrong. Because
right. I mean, 1080p and 2K is totally different. I mean, I do see differences.
The problem is there are no 2K phones, because usually they are Quad HD, which is 2560 by 1440. That's like 2.5K, and 4K is 4K. 1080p, there is a big difference. 2K phones would have been, I don't know any of those.
Right. And so when you're talking about 2560 by 1440, it's totally different from 1080p, guys. I mean, a lot of people argue me down about they don't see any difference between 1080p and 1440p, but put it in VR.
Okay, in VR the difference is big, and I would say it really depends on what kind of display you get, because I still think, and I've had this discussion with someone on the board at work podcast, and I said that the 1080p display of the Huawei Mate 9 still, for example, even in direct comparison, I had that with the Quad HD display of the Honor 8 Pro was the better, because for some reason the display was just more high quality. It was clearer. And if you have looked closer, yes, the Quad HD display was sharper, but from normal appearance, it wasn't better. And that's the thing. So I'm okay with 1080p if the quality is good. In most cases by now, though, I have also to say, Quad HD has become so efficient that you don't really lose much performance, because it doesn't matter. Because if you use the XZ Premium in 2K, I mean 1080p, if you do Quad HD or 4K, there's almost no difference. So the chip is capable of doing that. And it's usually just the backlight that drains the battery more, because so many people ask me, wouldn't 4K, if you use it native all the time on the Sony Xperia XZ Premium, take up so much more battery? But when I used it 1 week on 1080 and 1 week on 4K, the difference was almost not there because it's the backlight that drained. The resolution doesn't really bother the chip anymore. The chip is so powerful that it can drive both. And that's why I think Quad HD is kind of the best of both worlds, because you get a noticeably better resolution than 1080, but you get the better battery life overall because they're so close to 1080p in terms of drain and so on. And 4K is almost there, but I would stick with Quad HD for a while, I would say.
And you know what? I agree with you. And that's the thing. When you're talking about the Snapdragon 820, Snapdragon 821, 835 and 836 processor, even when you're talking about the 625, 652s, I again believe that it's no excuses not to put a Quad HD display in the device. It's no longer about battery life. It's no longer about performance. It's no longer about that. I think people say, well, I got the 1080p screen and I get better performance. That's not the case. That's
not anymore, no.
Not anymore.
Last year, maybe it was at some point, but this year it's so strong because once I've seen the Sony running on 4K, just about as good as the HTC 11 with Quad HD, and just about as good as, for example, a OnePlus with 1080p. So as you can see, 4K to 1080p difference is almost not visible anymore, and that's why that is not really an excuse anymore.
And so the comment to Albert that's in the building, he is a OnePlus fan, so he's a 1080p guy. So I don't know if he ever had a Quad HD display phone before. So shouts out to Albert that's in the building. He's a OnePlus fan from the evolution of OnePlus.
Yes,
that's Albert that's in the building, and he will put numbers out there in August down from here to hell over before he give up on that 1080p. If OnePlus from now until 2020 put 1080p's on their devices, he will be okay with that. Don't matter how it is, he want a 1080p screen on his OnePlus 5, OnePlus 5T, OnePlus 6, OnePlus 7. It can all have a 1080p screen, and Albert would always love it, 100%.
Yeah, but I also have to say he's kind of not wrong, because he says 1440p didn't do much for him than 1080p. And I have to say, because on my first impressions video on the OnePlus 5, I said that the display is a little bit more grainy. And when I'm in review mode, when I really check the display and sound and everything like a reviewer just to find out how good it is, then I see those differences. But once I've used the OnePlus for like 3, 4, 5 days as my daily driver from a normal distance, just as I use any other phone, it didn't really matter. If you look closely, yes, you will always see the difference, but the longer you use the phone, I think the less it will matter. What I've noticed, though, whenever I switch back from any phone, for example, still to my Quad HD S7, I see it's clearer. But if you don't do this all the time, I think it really isn't all that important. It should be the case, because that's something that bothers me about the Pixel 2, because we've seen the new renders, and it seems that it will be just a 16:9 display with 1080p. And if it will not be cheaper than, let's say, 500, maybe 600, I think that's not good enough anymore, because the Pixel XL will be Quad HD. So why don't we get that same experience, the same high flagship experience on the just smaller phone? Because I don't know why I should pay so much but don't get the same experience. Because some people just want the same, just smaller, but we don't get that from Sony, from Pixel.
You know what? When you talk about the Pixel, I talked about this on my last stream. Why Google is fragmentating their own self? I mean, they're giving you a 16:9 aspect ratio on the Google Pixel. Then on the Google Pixel XL2, you get the 18:9 aspect ratio.
That makes no sense.
That don't make no sense.
That's stupid, yeah. If they want to push this new aspect ratio, because they said, I think they said new developers of apps should adopt this new method. For example, because Samsung will make it big, HTC at some point will adopt it as well, LG is all getting on it. And if they really stand behind that, they should release both phones with that resolution, because this is kind of like just paddling back a bit. So yes, it's new, but I don't know, we really don't trust it. So I think it's okay that we have the option for people who still want 16:9, then they can get a smaller phone. But they also make a lot of compromise, I think. So if you want the proper Google flagship, I think the Pixel won't be it. It will be the XL.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, but if that's the case, I mean, is Google taking a step forward or a step backwards? Because now you're going to get a 16:9 aspect ratio with a huge forehead chin. And so, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not a huge fan of the first generation Pixel as far as design. And now that we see all the devices of 2017 start to implement no forehead, no chin, with beautiful infinity displays. I mean, the Mate 10 coming out with infinity display. I mean, all of them coming out with edge-to-edge displays and everything going to 18:9 aspect ratios and stuff like that. So at this point, I mean, why Google is going to a standard 16:9 aspect ratio, then for the other tier device, they're going to 18:9. That makes no sense. They fragmenting their own self. And I thought they're trying to get away from that. And it just, wow.
Yep. Yeah, but what's your personal opinion on this new aspect ratio? Which one do you still prefer? Because I still see many people who say, hey, just because Samsung is doing it, it's already the future. So everyone, and a lot of people think that 18:9 will be a standard next year. I don't think that will happen. I think more, especially the flagship phones will get it. I think mid-rangers won't get it anywhere close, like maybe 2019. But is it actually a benefit? Because I still, and even though the apps will adapt better to 18:9 and all that, I think what most people still do is watch videos, YouTube and so on. And I don't see the benefit of that. And what I've also noticed, someone who got an S8 at my workplace, he said that he likes how tall the screen is. But what I've noticed just after a few days is that I pretty much only focus on the center. And what does it matter if I have a centimeter more or less on the bottom and top? I don't look all the, because my eyes don't work like that on a phone. It's usually this. No, it is the way you scroll. Right. Therefore you scroll. No one takes the whole side and watches it from the top to the bottom. At the middle, at some point, you always scroll. So it doesn't matter if the screen is that tall, in my opinion.
Right. And you know what? I agree with you. And I've been arguing this for months about the Galaxy Note 8. I like 16:9 on the Galaxy Note because it gives you that wideness, because I look at it 3x5 index card. And I like to write on the Galaxy Note. And to lose that aspect ratio on the Galaxy Note is one of my concerns. Now, we've seen all these renders and all these case manufacturers that you know, saying that it will be a little wider. Now, to fit the S Pen. So I'm seeing that the Galaxy Note will be a little wider. I am not a fan of the 18:9 aspect ratio on the Note devices because of writing on the screen and trying to get that wideness, because when you put your hand on the screen and you're trying to write. So I am a fan of the 16:9 aspect ratio when, you know, I'm looking at movies and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those error things. I don't know.
Yeah, that's my issue with this aspect ratio, because there is a good reason why TVs, or especially in cinemas, you have 21:9, because what I've read it somewhere that your eyes, or the way they work, they see way much more information vertically, and it's horizontally than vertically, and that's why we have TVs being wider than they are tall. Now, that makes sense on a phone if you would watch content all the time at 20:9, which I guess will be more common in the future. I don't think YouTube, though, will be that thing, because if you have a phone, it will, because you see more, or you perceive more information in the width. So if your phone is actually more narrow, you don't have any benefit of the tallness. If you would flip that and then use only content, for example, with 21:9, it makes sense. But what do most people do on their phone? They watch YouTube or they browse the web. And I think in that case, 16:9 still makes more sense. And in some, I don't know what they're thinking about that, because still, it's not the most common thing. And 16:9 on YouTube will stay for a long time.
Well, let me ask you this question then. If you got the Galaxy devices, the Galaxy Note, the Pixels, and the V30s, and you got the second half of devices that's all adapting to the 18:9 aspect ratio. Then you got Apple coming out with an 18:9 aspect ratio device. Don't you think it puts a little strain on the industry to change the format to 18:9 aspect ratio? Because you're gonna have millions and millions and millions of devices in people's hands that's getting letterboxing. What they're gonna do, they're not gonna criticize the phone, they're gonna criticize YouTube. They're gonna say YouTube sucks. So what's gonna happen is it forces YouTube to adapt to the new aspect ratio. Because once we hit 2018, you're gonna have a large population that's going to already have 18:9 aspect ratio devices in their hand. And if they go into the Galaxy S9, 18:9 aspect ratio, which at that point, you're going to have millions, tens of hundreds of millions of people that's going to have that device at that aspect ratio. So what's going to happen, obviously, things going to have to change in the industry. Don't know if it's going to be a good or bad thing, but I think eventually it may happen.
No, in this regard, I totally have to agree with you, because I did not actually think of that. Because if the two big ones, let's say Samsung and Apple, do this, it will be the case. Because of course now, if you have now a 18:9, you are at a disadvantage, because most apps don't adapt, and you have crops. You have to either crop to fill the screen, or you have letterbars. You're totally right. If more phones, especially the important phones like Apple, like Samsung, maybe LG and HTC, and especially also the Google Pixel, get to this new aspect ratio, and like you said, would force YouTube to go for something wider, I guess then the elitists have the advantage. But then still, most people who have the cheaper phones, which won't adopt this, they will have the disadvantage, because then they will have letterboxing and so on. And so there's always a trade-off. At the moment, everyone who has 16:9, who has the kind of, let's say, cheaper phone, has the advantage, but it could shift in a year or two already.
You know what? And you're right. And you know what the OEM's going to do? It's going to stop supporting them. They want you to update. They want you to pay more money. If you got a device in 2016, going into the 18:9 aspect ratio era, going into 2018, all they're going to do is tell you to upgrade. That's all. I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'd like to address one thing that Albert says. He says 16:9 needs to stay. Don't forget that the most content is watched on TV sets and computer monitors. The recording industry gives a flying suck about the weird phone aspect. That's actually not that true, because just look at it. Most YouTube or YouTube viewers actually view on mobile phones or tablets. So in that aspect already, there are more. Yes, a lot of people still use monitors and TVs, but if you check, TV shows are for some reason still 16:9, but every movie these days is 21:9. And I think at some point, TV shows will adapt. And what do we then have? Then we have all the movies, all the TV shows being at 20:9. And with YouTube being watched on phones anyways, 21:9 at some point will be the one thing. I personally don't like it either, because it's especially for something like the iPad Air. I've said it. The great thing about the 4:3 aspect ratio on a tablet is that it works very well in both aspects. I can use it very well for browsing portrait, but also in landscape. But the moment I have a 16:10 tablet from Android, it only works in one way. If you have a very big one, it works if you have it horizontally, but only browsing works vertically. But then on a 10-inch, it feels just weird in terms of the aspect ratio. But if you have a small one, it only works like a bigger phone. So that's why I think 4:3 makes sense. And at some point, I guess we will have to switch to 21:9.
Yeah, and you know what? Art Dog said Hollywood doesn't care. Let me tell you something. Hollywood does care. If you have 60–70% of the users watching your movies on a mobile device, they absolutely do care, because they want you to buy the movie. They want you to stream it. They want you to watch it. So yes, I think Hollywood does care. And I think Hollywood will adapt to
but Hollywood already has 21:9, so I don't think they will switch from 21:9, because I don't think the difference is that big. If you have 21:9 to 18:9, you have some maybe smaller pillars, or you could crop that most people won't even notice. But I don't think they will get away, because all cinemas and all TVs by now are getting to 21:9. We'll see more and more widescreen monitors. So I don't think 18:9 will ever become a cinema standard, because what I didn't get is and it was the biggest crap that I've heard on the LG presentation with the full vision display, that they had a movie maker, director, I don't know who that was. I've never heard of that guy. And he said 18:9 is the perfect aspect ratio for whatever he does. But I've never seen a movie in 18:9. So I don't know what kind of sense they made. It was completely bogus. Just to justify this aspect ratio, don't tell me that it's right for TVs. For cinema, it's 21:9. And I actually expected phones, if they get wider and more narrow and therefore taller, I actually expected more something like 21:9, but not 18:9. So we are, I guess, at a stopgap. So maybe something in between. And phones, I guess 21:9 would look just a little bit too awkward. So it is kind of a good compromise to satisfy both needs. The ones that still want kind of 16:9, but still the movie experience, because you can't go either one anymore.
Yes. And you know what, believe it or not, and it's one of those things. I think we're going into an era shift. I think everything is changing. I think everything is like Star Trek. We're going into the Mutaba Nebula. I mean, I think everything is changing. And it may be a good thing because I projected foldable displays was going to come in 2017. Now I'm saying foldable displays are coming in 2018. That's going to change the whole dynamic of a lot of things. When you talk about foldable display, maybe they can do 21:9 on the foldable display. I'm not sure. I'm just seeing this trend. You got 5G networks coming aboard. You got T-Mobile buying all this spectrum. You got devices changing aspect ratios. You got high prices that's already being implemented. You got Apple coming aboard with the AR and VR and 18:9 aspect ratio. So I see a huge shift that's about to happen in the mobile division. Don't you see that? Don't you feel that energy that's well, I ain't gonna say the price. Look, your pocketbook's gonna be a little empty, but I do see that they have such a something going on in this mobile industry.
Yeah, even though I don't quite see why they are doing this. Is it just to have a change, or are they actually planning something for the future with that? That's something that I'm not quite sure, because the biggest difference of 18:9 or something like that, what Samsung was to make a phone that is easy to hold and at least on paper gives you a big screen, but it isn't really a big screen, because I don't see the Samsung S8 to be as a 5.8 incher, because 5.8 incher would be something like a Mate 9 or on an 8 Pro. And if you see that screen side by side, something like the S8 seems like a small screen. And that's a little bit of fooling the customer, because I've seen so many people that say, I want the S8 for the big screen, but it is not a big screen. If you go for a 5.5 incher that sounds like way less, you get the actual bigger screen.
Yeah, and you know what? That you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't know how this aspect ratio stuff works. They only assume things that they get bigger screens, but they're not. But believe it or not, if you're looking at how the industry is going, with this new aspect ratio, it's confusing a lot of people. It's got people thinking of what's going on here. And I've been telling people to get your popcorn ready, because we've seen a shift. And I don't know. Let me get it to Albert. Can you tell me right now? I'm not going to make a habit to watching a 2-hour-long movie on the phone. I'll watch them on the TV or in the cinema with my popcorn in hand. Now, I've actually watched movies on VR, and it's a pretty good experience. Now, I don't know about eating popcorn, but I think what it is mobile, whether or not it's a bigger screen or a smaller screen, Albert. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to be mobile. And I think that's where the industry going. I think that the industry looking at it like this. A lot of people is not stationary anymore. They're not in their homes. Either they're out and about with their families or at work. How could they do this? How could I give you the same experience of you watching a 4K television at home?
Yeah, but I have to agree with Albert. He is right in that regard. I would never watch a 2-hour-long video, because the most time at a piece that I maybe watch on a phone would be like 10-15 minutes for a YouTube clip. But if I would know somewhere mobile that I want to watch, this means I would be 2 hours somewhere, I don't know where. If I spent that much time, I would go, like he says, to the on his TV or on the cinema. But I don't know, because I see so many people saying how big of a deal it is to get on the S8 or on the LG G6 to get HDR on all of that. But on a phone, I don't see the point, because if you are somewhere out and about for so long, 2 hours, why are you going anywhere for 2 hours to watch a movie? If you are maybe on a trip, then you bring your tablet along or something like that. But watching TV shows, long ones, and also movies on a phone, I don't see the point. In 4K, I would say, is still overkill. The biggest difference for me, what it would make it, just to have a clearer experience in normal use, but I don't need it for videos.
You know what? And I agree with you in so many things. And like when I'm on a plane, I watch me, some Grey's Anatomy and stuff like that. And when I'm on a plane, I download it off of Netflix, and I know my flight is an hour and a half, and I try to, have to the point where I can watch a little something, and I watch it on my mobile device, because I don't usually bring my iPad, but if I do bring my iPad, I usually watch it, but I try to be a little compact. But I do agree with either way, watching it on the TV and watching on the mobile device or whatever. I don't know. I just think that I don't know. I think we get this the mobile era. I think that's where it's going. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, but here's also the thing. When I see people when they reviewed, for example, the XE Premium, or when they got the first those ultra wide phones, they said what a immersive effect you have. But just look at it properly. You are watching at a 5-inch screen, maybe 6 inches. That's not immersive, because when I just only watch a movie on a laptop, I feel like I'm missing something. Because if I get into the experience of a maybe blockbuster movie, I want to experience that as big and as impressive as possible. And the phone still is not nearly that. I would have to kind of take it exactly to my eyes. And with VR, I would agree, then it makes sense. But I don't think many people watch full-length movies on VR. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't know. Maybe I actually used to like watching movies on my Honor Note 8. 6.6-inch phone. It's 16:9 aspect ratio. That's like watching a tablet, believe it or not. That's
yeah. That is.
Yeah. But get into some more of the comments. Shouts out to KB Hop in the building. I watch movies on my business trips, and I don't use a tablet. Most of media consumption is on my phone. But that's me, though. That's what he said. Goldman say on the plane. Rob says, shouts out to me in the building. Those habits are in its infancy, so it's hard to say what would I do now. When the next generation, I will find it. The next generation will find it to be normal. But you know what? I see my daughter watching a lot of TV. I was thinking about this. My daughter actually watched Netflix a lot on her iPhone. Even though she got a big 55-inch TV sitting in her room, she's sitting in her bed and she'll have the phone next to her and she'll be watching Netflix.
Yeah, but yeah, he's right with the next generation, because they see things completely different. They grow up with completely different stuff. Because if I see the younger generation now, they just come, and 5-6-year-olds already have smartphones. I didn't get my first smartphone until I was, I think, like 20 or something like that. But for me, it was something completely new. For them, it's completely normal. By the time they are 15, the phone is nothing special for them anymore.
And I tell you, like for Christmas, a lot of people was when we did Christmas gifts for everybody, we used to buy the kids something. And my wife said, "What should we get the kids for Christmas?" I tell them iPhones. That's all they want. You ask them, "What you want for Christmas?" "I want a phone." And we went to Best Buy and was looking at some of the phones, maybe get the little cheapy Galaxy phone. And I'm like, nah, you got to get them all iPhone SEs. I promise you, all the millennials, all the kids, man, when they open up that iPhone, you should see they face when they popped open and they got an iPhone. It's something about an iPhone to the kids that brings something special to them. I mean, man.
Yeah, but is it more because of it's a status symbol, or is it because that's the thing. Yeah. And I've seen that going away a little bit here, because more people are more price efficient. They just look at what they actually get for their money, and you don't really get great value out of Apple products. That's just the way.
Yeah, and I do agree. I mean, the iPhone SE, come on. I mean, that was a joke. Everybody was laughing about that phone when it came out. Like, iPhone SE with that little bitty phone. But you know what? I do want to ask this question. Remember this. Remember when the iPhone 4S, and it went from the iPhone 4S to the iPhone 5? Didn't Apple change the aspect ratio on that device? Didn't Apple change from the 3.5 to a 4? And it changed.
They made it. They made it higher for one row of icons. Yes.
So they actually changed the aspect ratio.
They had to at that point, because they were so much behind the whole industry, and I don't know why they still use kind of odd numbers in terms of resolutions. It's actually weird that the iPhone Plus uses 1080p, where the regular one still uses 720p. So it seems to be the same thing once again, because if they go for something wider, like 18:9, I don't think they will do the same resolution as either LG does or Samsung. I think they will do something on their own anyways again, because that's just what they do. And I don't know why they have to kind of do this.
And so you think that like Apple is fragmenting themselves?
They don't need to fragment. They can do whatever they want to, because
it's Apple. Apple can do whatever Apple wants. And people go stand in line and wait for it. And look, all the industry is showing big profits except LG, right? I mean, Samsung posted a big quarterly profit. Apple just posted a huge quarterly profit. LG is in the slump right now in the mobile division. And I don't know about HTC. I don't know if they posted quarterly results, but we've been hearing a lot, some bad stuff about LG right now. It's not too good for them.
Yeah, but what would you say? What was the main reason why the LG G6 got so positive reviews and all those people who have it love it, but why it got accepted so bad? Because what I seen when I made a comment or in some video when someone asked me and I told him my reasons, someone said it's the old chip, it's the old glass that they use because they still stick with
Gorilla Glass 3.
But 3 in my opinion was the best one anyways, because anything after that got way too soft and scratched easier. So I was fine with that. They said that the camera sensor is old, but yes, from a spec standpoint, it was new, but what does it matter? The camera, even though the sensor was old, made great video and photo. The display was nice, the calibration was a bit off, but I don't think the internals would have been the reason. Of course, it's hard to sell a phone at the same time as the S8 if it comes with lesser specs. That's even though this phone could be on par, it just has a harder time selling.
You know what? I say this in my video. I say this in a couple of my videos, what I did with LG. It's a great phone, wonderful phone. I think the problem with LG is they need to grow a pair, because right now they stuck it between their legs and they just let Samsung just roll all over. It's no way, and maybe they just didn't. I mean, LG is a big company, so I wouldn't say that LG didn't have the money, but man, they just had to. The thing about this, remember when Samsung used to go out to Apple, when they had the commercial with the people in the line and say, "Hey, my Galaxy S4 can do this," and that's the same thing that LG needs to do. They got a great product. The LG G6 is good. Nobody couldn't get the 835s. So, and I think people that don't realize that. I mean, at that point, they could not get it. Samsung had it kind of locked. So nobody couldn't get the 835s. So yeah, everybody had to come out with 821.
Yeah, but for example, Arnold says the LG G6 has the old 821 and the screen is much too dim. I kind of agree on the screen. It's not an issue for me because I don't use them outside so much. But the old S21, that's just the thing why people don't buy it if they just look at numbers. Because just for example, take the OnePlus 3T. With the 821, it still runs just as good as the S8 or something like that. So the difference is pretty much non-existent. And I really had to look so close to see a little bit more of a perceiver, or at least a significant difference between the OnePlus 5 and the 3T. So I don't think that is a good reason. If people just look at the numbers, I think they are sometimes getting fooled because yes, it's old and that's maybe an issue, but that's also wrong in this industry. Just because something is old, it doesn't mean it's bad. Not at all.
You know what? And I agree with you. I mean, Samsung came out with the Tab S3 with the 820 in it. And I mean, they got great reviews with that.
Actually, I would say it didn't run well. That was my issue. No. But the problem, the S2 didn't run already all that well. But I was a little bit disappointed because last year the Tab S2 with the Snapdragon was running a 650. So let's say a little bit better than mid-ranger chip. But I expected the S20 to run so much better than it did on the S3. And I'm not sure if it's the optimization. The resolution on its own can't be it. Of course, it's even bigger than on their phones. But I think the S20 should have been able to handle it better than it did, because there was way more of this touch with lag noticeable. But I also think that the reason therefore is that tablets, even though they have the same SoC that runs well on a phone, is just because you have a bigger screen and you see way more content. And even though the resolution might be similar, the problem is that you have way more screen real estate and the phone has to render way more content. And I think that's the issue why you would need an overpowered tablet to run just as good.
Yeah, you know what? Tablets are going away. I mean, iPads then kind of ran everybody away. Don't know what happened. I mean, I'm glad Samsung is still doing it. But
I think Samsung made a mistake because they went for the iPad Pro. But no one, I think, in their right mind, if he's not really an Android fan on a tablet, would go for the Samsung S3 with the almost same price if he can get an iPad. Because on the iPad Air, the Pro, or even the new one, you will get, after all, a way better experience than on the Tab S3, because the Tab S3 was nothing spectacular. For the price, the speakers were just about good and all that. And I told so many people, just go for the Tab S2. It's way cheaper, and that's what they should have checked for. They should have released something at the mid-range that it was better, because they can't. I think pretty much no one can compete on the premium Android tablet market with Apple. That's just not possible.
Yeah. So it's the Tab S3 2, because I didn't get any of them. Does it have the Welcome Digitize with pin support? No, it's just the S3.
The S3, yeah, only the S3. That's one of the issues, because that's what I said in my review. If you want the S Pen, then you kind of need to go for the S3. But otherwise, I don't see much of a reason, because the screen was pretty much, I would say, the same, even a little bit worse calibrated. But the speakers weren't nearly as good as on an iPad and so on. So I think they should have targeted something at around 500. And now, sometimes on sale, it is around available for 500. I think it will sell way better. And that's also, I think, the reason why the S2 got so much cheaper quite quickly, because they noticed we can't compete on the premium market on tablets.
Right, man. I'm gonna tell you, we right now almost at the top of the hour, guys, and we don't want to keep this stream. Look, we could be talking tech all night long. I ain't gonna lie to you. I really do enjoy this conversation, but I know it is almost daytime for you.
It's almost 6 a.m. Yeah,
6 a.m. in the morning. Wow, I don't want to. I don't want to keep you too long. And but you know, man, one last thing, man. I tell you. How did you start doing YouTube before we get out of here? I want everybody to know your history. I'm a huge fan. I watch your channel a lot. But what made you get into YouTube?
It's actually quite a long story, and of course by now it's quite long away. But it actually started a little bit weird, because I was an quite avid XDA forum user, and I was doing a lot of custom ROM checks and so on, and at some point people just gave a lot of my opinion, and then someone asked me if I could make a video, and at that point I was getting a little bit more, and I think the one person without that I wouldn't be making YouTube was Armando Ferreira. I don't know if you know him, and he was big with iPhone videos back then, but also these kind of Google Nexus videos and so on. That made him popular, and he started a blog. And what he did is he said normal viewers or readers of the blog could actually send in their kind of articles, and that's what I did. I did like 2 or 3, and they got quite popular, a lot of views and so on, a lot of comments. And then he asked if I wanted to be a member of that blog, and that's how I got into blogging a little bit back then. But he was already quite big, I think way over 100K in terms of subs on his YouTube channel. And he said, because there was also a third member, Brian Healy, and he was thinking about YouTube, and then I was the only one who didn't, and they said to me, you should maybe try it as well. But I was someone who never wanted to the camera. I never wanted to be in front of the camera or talk about it, because I wouldn't say I was shy, but I was someone who wanted to spread out his message on public. But when I saw both of them doing it, I just tried it, and I got hooked quite quickly, I would say. And if my first device review, which was I think the first Tegra 4 tablet, wouldn't have been quite popular, it wouldn't have turned out that well. But my first videos were mostly like custom ROM reviews. And back then, when I made those, custom ROMs were still very huge, way bigger than they are by now. And that's how I got to that. And the device reviews, they came way later on. Wow. And then it just rolled on and on.
Wow, and that's an interesting story. I mean, you know, I got hooked on YouTube because I felt that I was betrayed by some YouTubers, and that I just felt.
Can I quickly jump into that, because that's a really good point. I wanted to address that a little bit earlier, because when you said that same thing, you got betrayed, because that's also one reason for me why I am so critical. Because, for example, the Audio-Technica M50, this is the most popular headphone, and every time I see someone pushing it so much, I'm angry because of so many positive reviews. The reason I bought it was that. And then I got it and was disappointed. And I made also my review, and I said that I don't get why so many people are hooked into it. It's a quite boring speaker. The headphone, the quality isn't all that great. And that's what I wanted to keep people aware of. I wanted to tell them that I wanted to be just more critical, that they don't do the same mistake and trust on those reviews that are just too positive. And that's why I always say my intention is actually not to sell stuff. I'm happier and I get more out of that if I beware someone from a bad purchase than, because everyone can buy a good device. That's quite easy these days. But you don't, and that's the one thing that I regret most whenever I buy something and I don't like it then. And that's why I'm doing this. A little bit more harsher style that some people don't appreciate. Because the reason most people are watching reviews is just to justify their purpose. They want to feel good about what they bought.
Yeah.
But there are still many people, and actually more on the lower end segment, the mid-range market, they want to spend their hard-earned money well. And that's where I want to help them. And so many people just release their big flagship reviews. And it's easy to give a positive review to a flagship because they are usually quite strong. But especially on those, I'm super hard. And that's exactly what I said on the LG G6. I said it's LG's flagship. And that's why I give it a flagship treatment. If they think this is their best, I will treat it as that. And I was quite hard. And many people said, you were way too hard on that phone. It didn't deserve that harsh critic, but I'm just as hard on any other one. It's same as the S8 or whatever Huawei else releases. And you shouldn't be easier. You should be harder the more expensive something gets.
That's right. That's why on this YouTube channel it's all about shooting justice. We don't give no fluff, no passes over here. That's how we do it, right? Your easy computer solution. And I'll tell you, I'm hard on a lot of phones. A lot of people criticize me for being hard on phone. You know, I actually burned the phone up before. I did a barbecue video, which I burned the phone because it sucked.
Which one was it?
Actually, it was a good phone. It was a I did the Blade V8 by ZTE. I actually barbecued the phone. It was it was an okay phone. I ain't gonna lie to you, but the fan.
No, but that's the thing, because just about I think last week I was asked from ZTE if I wanted to review that phone, but when I've seen the specs, the 430 with a 1080p display, I thought, wait, that's almost the Nokia 6, and I ranted on that, and I gave it quite a lot of harsh words, and I told them, what I did to the Nokia 6, I would have to do to your phone as well. So in case you don't want it, rather don't let me review it. It's fine.
Oh yeah, it was a fun video. I actually a lot of people liked that video. I got a lot of views on it. I did a drop test, and then I did a full-fledged barbecue, which I took and I messed up a whole $300 grill doing this, by the way. I put the phone on the grill, and I actually pulled lighter fluid on it and burned it up, and it was fun. I had 3 cameras recording, and it was fun. But I do funeral videos. I did a lot of funeral videos, and I do a ritual, which I have candles and all that stuff, just having fun. But those are the type of things. I guess that's one of the reasons why I don't get review units. But it's all about having fun, you know. I started this YouTube channel not to get free stuff, but just to review it the way it is, and you know. But
yeah, but a lot of respect to that, because I think in some of the live stream from Jay Will, you said you spent like 60,000, or is it right, on phones, or was it like that?
Yeah.
And when I heard that, because I always said I'm fortunate enough that I get those review units. If I wouldn't, I just couldn't get myself to get over so much money, and like you do. So
I'm actually changing. I'm trying to change stuff around a little bit. When I started YouTube, I went full force. I said, I ain't taking nothing from nobody. I'm gonna buy everything. And then, you know, when I'm looking at my financial statement every year, and I'm 22,000 plus this on YouTube, and I'm saying, wait a minute, I've been on YouTube for 3 years, and yeah, I'm almost up there, and that's a shame. I've actually have to change some stuff around, because it's no way in that, as everybody know, we make pennies on YouTube. I make no money here on YouTube. So when you're making no money on YouTube and you spending that type of capital, then you get, you know, the wife go that questioning stuff, you know, hey, I mean, that's expensive hobby that you're doing there. And you know, I agree. So that's why I had to change it.
Yeah, because that's also the reason I never really tracked my costs, what I pay for it, because I think I was like over 2 years in, and I didn't, of course, like you said, you don't get much from YouTube, and someone told me you're still in the minus, and I thought, no, I didn't spend that much. But once I actually took all what I've paid in, I was so much in the red numbers, and I thought, man, and this is without pretty much anything bought, because I only spent my money on my gear, but never on the review units, which is great, because if I would have to, because I don't know what so many people ask me what I do with these review units once I don't need them anymore, but I told them I never keep them. If I would buy them, I would be broke already for ages already.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm changing some stuff around. It in 2017, I kind of changed some stuff around because I no longer could do this type of stuff. I just can't just spend it.
If you don't have the cash on your side, if you don't maybe earn so much from your normal job, you can't do it as a YouTube reviewer, and that's why so many just buy one device and then sell it and get a new one and the next one and so on. But otherwise, because YouTube year after year pays even less and less, and it's hard if you aren't one of the big ones who has sponsors or anything like that. It's almost impossible. Yeah,
right. And the thing about it is, a lot of people don't understand that. I think what happens a lot when I mean, you get it too. Review this phone, review this phone. They give me 1,000 different phones to review, and I'm saying to myself, wow. I mean, I got Super Chat wide open, and I got donations, I got Patreon, I got all kinds of stuff that people can do to donate.
Yeah, but that's actually one thing. I've said that you have, like, let's say 12,000 subs and you get 20 Patreons. Yeah, that's the thing, because I tried Patreon, but I was back then maybe at 1,000 or 2,000 subs, and I got, like, I think 3. So at some point I just noticed that it's not worth it. Maybe at some point I would now get more, but I stopped doing that, and because Patreon, I think, is not that common. Some still do it, but you have to have a really good followership, because I also see this right now on your stream, like I do on mine. We don't get super chats, but when I, for example, see those big YouTubers, if they make a live stream, they earn maybe even $1,000 or even more sometimes on one stream. That's more than I make in many months. So, because, for example,
I ain't gonna lie to you, I actually saw PewDiePie live stream, and oh my God, I see hundreds of dollars, and I mean, it is insane.
I see people donating sometimes even $100 from one single person. And what I get sometimes, usually it's Albert, I get like $2. And that's pretty much the maximum. And because the problem is also they have so many viewers, and if you want a question answered, you need to pay so it's been seen. What I do on my tech Q&As, I answer pretty much all the questions. So why would you pay for the question being answered? You get it anyways. But for example, I see Gomez said, review and return, baby. I have to actually say that's how I started my channel. I think the first 3 or 4 devices I actually bought with the intention of just reviewing it and selling it or returning it. But I have to say it just took like 3 or 4 devices before I felt it felt wrong, because I didn't buy it and then return it because I didn't like it. I just bought it because I knew I would return it. And at that point, I actually said, if I don't get review units at this point, I will just make discussion videos, maybe live streams and some maybe app videos. But I was lucky enough that just about at that point, I got review units, because otherwise I don't think if the channel would be still there, because I just can't spend so much money like you do, because that's something that really shows the passion and the dedication. And I have to say, I don't have that, because if I see so many of those smaller YouTubers, I don't know how they actually have this passion in it. It's actually respectful.
It's very difficult. I can tell you that, you're right. 12,000 subscribers, and I got 20 Patreons. And what I do is, and believe it or not, I'm doing my giveaways on my Patreon account now. And I actually put exclusive content on Patreon. I put videos on Patreon first before I post it on YouTube. Yep. So I give those people even though it's 20 people, I still look.
No, I get that, but for me that was always the issue when I saw Patreon, because the first people that I've seen making Patreon, they said you will get exclusive videos that you don't get on YouTube. You will get them earlier, and earlier I kind of get. But the problem is why also my Patreon never went off. I said, for example, if I make so and so much money, you get nothing. I said if you pay $50 a month, you get nothing more, because just because you pay me, it doesn't give you some extra privileges, because that's what I wanted to do different with Patreon. Because I always said I won't make exclusive content for Patreons and all that. And of course that didn't work out, but it was fun because I personally don't like having to have to pay to see every content. But I guess it's fine if you just release it earlier. That's fine.
I mean, I look at it that, I mean, somehow, some way, somehow I got to, if I'm going to continue to do this YouTube stuff and I'm not getting no review units, I have to find capital somewhere. Yep. I mean, either through Patreon, through fan funding, because the way my channel is structured, back in 2016, man, I did a lot of funeral videos from every OEM. And I don't know if they watch my channel and they say, oh man, this guy suck. I can't do that, And I really went into it full force of being independent. But I rethought myself in 2017 after looking at financial statements. I mean, things change, I just can't. I mean, especially when you're looking at Galaxy Note 8s at $1,100 price points and iPhone 7 V30s. I mean, between now and the next 3 months, man, that's $4 or $5 grand that I have to come up with.
Yep.
I mean,
that's
a lot of people don't understand. I make pennies on YouTube, and
absolutely.
when I got to come up with $4 grand in 3 months, that's a lot of people mortgages times 4.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing, because so many people tell me if this is my full-time job or something, or ask me, and I said to them, the money I make on YouTube doesn't cover anything, because I could just work maybe on a Sunday sometimes, a little bit of some overtime, and I would easily cover that, because there were, let's say maybe not the last year so much, but the year before and that, I would have just come one Sunday on work and I would have made more than I make on the whole month of YouTube. So if you just see the time that I put in, because I put in more than I do at my work job. I would say, someone asked me how much, and I said I can't really tell if it's 50 hours, if it's maybe 80 hours, especially if you consider the testing and so on. And compared to that, what you get, that's way less than the minimal amount of wage you should get. So
the thing about it is this YouTube problem. I mean, they really need to think about this. I mean, I do understand that YouTube is flooded with a lot of channels, and a lot of them is junk. But I mean, the thing about it is, but it's YouTube. Like, I mean, maybe they could make some changes. You know, I mean, maybe they could look at the serious people that upload, a lot of content.
Yeah. But one thing that was also super disappointing for me, because I got lucky once that a German blog picked up one of my OnePlus videos and he embedded it in his blog, and I because my English version has like 30,000 views, but the German one that got picked up from the blog has, I think, like 330,000 views, which is a lot. And what did I make of that video? I think I made like $10, right. because the problem was it was embedded, and I did not get any revenue on that video. Because even on the 30,000 views of the English one, I got 3 times more revenue, because it's pretty much a worthless video. The good thing was, maybe I got a lot of viewers and I got a lot of new subs maybe because of that. But in terms of revenue, I don't know why you don't get this if it's kind of embedded in a blog. That's disappointing, because it's the same view.
Yeah, that's, and they get to see an ad. I mean, when they click on it, it always ads running. I don't know. I mean, you have a lot of stuff that's going on. I mean, YouTube Red, and you got YouTube is going to the YouTube TV and all the stuff, charging people $30-$40 a month. I don't know. I mean, is that coming to us? I mean, what's the deal with that?
But YouTube Red is also, it is definitely heavily favoring the bigger channels, because I've seen this, because the problem is you have the whole pie of YouTube Red money, and the bigger the channel is, the more he gets in terms of percentages. Because I've seen once there was a YouTuber, and he said, because he's like at 1 million, and he said that I think it was more than 10%, like 12-13% of his revenue is from YouTube Red. And when I look at mine, I'm at about 1% of my revenue. This means I'm small. I don't get anything off that big pie. And it's not quite fair, because I put out more content than most full-time YouTubers. So I think I should kind of get a little bit more, just because I offer so much more content, but they only see the amount of views. Okay, that kind of makes sense as well for all the people who pay that, but it still is hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but we're gonna wrap it up.
Yep.
And because it's 6 a.m. your time, and right now it's about 11 a.m. my time. So, man, I tell you, I really do appreciate it. Are you willing to come back for another interview?
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, no problem. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
I enjoy it.
Oh yeah. So thank you very much. I got a super chat. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, man, I tell you what, thank y'all guys very much for showing up today, and y'all guys coming through to the YouTube channel. And I do my live stream 3 days a week. Also, don't forget about Monday Morning Hangover, guys, that I will be here Monday morning. Also, Wednesday is always on deck. We have fun, but the biggest fun that we have is always on a Saturday. Well, I try to do my best to get a lot of interviews from different folks, and it's very, very, very good that I have some people working behind the scenes to try to make this happen. I'm working very hard for you guys to try to make this happen, because I'm pumped up, I'm cranked up to try to get this stuff done. And again, Mr. Jamal, I really appreciate you coming. Really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite.
Yes. All right, guys, we about to get on out of here. This is Eric from Easy Computer Solutions. Thank you, guys. I see Jay Will been in the stream. I appreciate y'all guys coming. I'll see y'all Monday.
Bye.